It was announced yesterday that Nebraska has parted ways with special teams coordinator Ed Foley, and that means the Huskers are officially on the job market. So in today's video, I'm going to go over 5 big candidates for Nebraska to hire as their next special teams coach. So really quick, we have a jam-packed video. That's obvious. Make sure to hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're unsubscribed, it would help me a lot. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm working hard every single day to bring you the best content on Husker YouTube, whether that's daily uploads, Nebraska transfer portal update, Husker breaking news, and so much more. So once again, please hit that subscribe button. It would help me a lot. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it, going over 5 huge candidates for Nebraska's next special teams coordinator. And I want to get things started with a guy who I believe is the odds-on favorite to replace Ed Foley, a name that you might not be too familiar with. This is Mark Scott with the Baylor Bears. He was hired in 2024 as the quality control special teams coach, and he completely changed their special teams to be one of the best in the Big 12. Now, what's interesting about Mark Scott isn't what he did this year. It's his history. Before he was hired by Baylor, he was with Houston, and before that, he was with West Virginia. So he has an extensive history with Dana Holgorsen as his special teams coach. We know that Dana Holgorsen is going to be very involved in this hiring process alongside Matt Rhule. So he has that very important connection. But not only that, Mark Scott is one of the best young special teams coaches in America. Let's talk about his tenure with Houston. He excelled at having one of the best return games in all of college football. Nebraska has lacked that. We haven't had a dynamic returner since DeMornay Pearson. Now, Houston was the only school in the country from 2019 to 2023 to have a kickoff return and a punt return every single season. So not only does he have a dynamic return game, but he also knows how to block a couple kicks. In 2021, Houston led the country with 6 blocked kicks. They also were really good in the snapping department, great in the punting and kicking department, battle of field position. So Mark Scott, not only does he have that Dana Holgorsen connection, but a very well-rounded special teams coach. This is a guy who I believe is the odds-on favorite. Get used to this name because I would not be too surprised if the Huskers hire him. Again, very young as well, has his best days of coaching ahead of him. I really like this hire if the Huskers can get it done. We need a dynamic return game. That's what we get here with Mark Scott, but he's well-rounded and has a lot of good coaching ahead of him. So this is a name that I want you to be familiar with. This is who I believe is the odds-on favorite for the Huskers to hire. Let's get into the fan favorite. You already know who we're going to talk about. This is Bill Busch. Now, ever since Nebraska had this special teams opening, everybody has been saying Bill Busch, but it feels like deja vu. People forget in the summer when Evan Cooper, our defensive backs coach, moved on, everybody was saying Bill Busch once again, hire Bill Busch. People forget when Tony White left just a couple weeks ago, people were saying Bill Busch should be hired, and it didn't happen. I do not believe that Bill Busch will be hired by the Huskers. I'm going to be completely honest. And we know Bill Busch is a great coach. Do not get me wrong. Was obviously great in the 2000s with the Huskers, came back in 2022, rebuilt our special teams, rebuilt our defense. So we know how good of a coach Bill Busch is. We know that he's still living in Lincoln. I believe he would be open to coaching with the Huskers. It's just a matter of principle, right? When Matt Rhule got to the Huskers, when he was hired, he had an opportunity to keep Bill Busch on this coaching staff, and he declined. He said, Bill Busch, you've been a great coach, but you're not going to be retained. I'm going to bring in my boy. I'm going to bring in Ed Foley, and you can go do your own thing, Bill Busch. That's exactly what happened. Now, I don't believe that Matt Rhule has the humility, not many people do, to circle back and say, hey, Bill, I made a mistake. I want you hired here. Let's do this again. I just don't believe that's going to happen. He didn't do it with the DB coach spot. He didn't do it with the defensive coordinator spot. So although Bill Busch would be a great hire, and I think everybody says it would be a home run, I just don't believe that we're really going to make this move. So again, we'll see what happens here with Bill Busch. This would be a good hire if it happened. Will it happen? Probably not. I just don't think Matt Rhule is going to circle back after denying him multiple times, right? I mean, he had the opportunity to keep him on this coaching staff. He said, no, I'm going to bring in my own coaches. It is what it is. That's coaching. Pretty much every coach does that. That's not like a flaw about Matt Rhule. I just don't think he's going to circle back here. Again, wish Bill Busch the best of luck. I think he'd be open to it. I just don't know if Matt Rhule would be, given the fact that he had an opportunity to hire him and he just didn't do it. I think he's going to go 0 for 3 here, and Bill Busch will not be our special teams coach. But I should mention this. It would be a great hire. I want it to happen personally, as do many of you, but will it happen? Probably not. Now, I want to get into an old Nebraska coach who I actually do think has a shot to be our next special teams coordinator. This is Mike Ekeler, the current special teams coordinator with the Tennessee Volunteers. He was with Nebraska back in the Bo Pelini era from 2008 to 2010 as our linebackers coach. Mike Ekeler has had a phenomenal tenure with Tennessee over the past couple years as their special teams coordinator. They're top 5 in the country in a multitude of statistics. They're the best in the SEC in a multitude of statistics as well. Block punts, kickoff return average, net punting, punt return defense, and punt return average. All of those top 20 in America as well. So we're talking about a guy who's a very young coach, only about 52 years old, probably has 20 plus years of coaching ahead of him. He has that Nebraska connection, being on that coaching staff with Bo Pelini. He's actually from Nebraska, was born and raised in this state, so probably has some family back here. Would not be too shocked if Nebraska tries to knock on his door and say, hey, what would it take to bring you back to this state? So this is a name that I'd absolutely watch out for. Mike Ekeler was previously with the Huskers in that Bo Pelini era, one of the best special teams coaches in America. I don't think Tennessee's going to let him go. They really, really like him over there, one of the best special teams in all of America. But I wouldn't be too shocked if he wanted to come back, just because you never know. He might have some connections to the state, some family left here. He might want to make a grand return. So this is an old coach who I believe would potentially come back to Nebraska. Now let's get into my fourth candidate, an absolute home run hire. Does Matt Rhule want to make a statement or not? This would be the guy that you would hire if you want to make a splash. This is Lavar Woods coming out of Iowa. Let's call it what it is. We don't like the Hawkeyes, but there's one thing we can appreciate about them. They have the best special teams in the country year in and year out. Lavar Woods is the mastermind behind that. Longtime Iowa coach, was before then an Iowa Hawkeye player. So listen, Lavar Woods, very, very good coach to say the least. He developed some of the best punters in America. Torrey Taylor is the cream of the crop there. Great return game. Cooper DeJean, one of the best returns in the country, now playing on Sundays. Great blocking units. They block multiple punts and kicks every single year. They just do everything at an elite level on the special teams department. He's also a very good recruiter. He's arguably going to be next in line to replace Kirk Ferentz as their head coach. So I know why some of you guys are going to ask, why would he come to Nebraska? He's a longtime Iowa coach. He was a previous player there. Why would he even consider Nebraska? Well, the greedy dollar speaks up sometimes. He's only getting paid $700,000 a year to be Iowa special teams coordinator. If Nebraska wants to make a splash here, you say, hey, Lavar Woods, I have a blank check. I'm going to force you to say no. And that puts you kind of in a win-win scenario. You either get Lavar Woods and you pay him a lot of money, which would be a great hire, or you force Iowa to say, okay, we got to give him a raise, and Iowa has to give him the amount of money he deserves, probably in that million mark. So this is a guy that I'd absolutely knock on his door, see what's going on there. Probably not the most realistic option in the world, but if you want to make a splash, if you want to make a statement, if you want to prove to Husker fans that you are prioritizing special teams going forward, this would be the guy that you call and say, hey, we're going to give you a blank check. We're going to give you 7 digits. We're going to make you say no and see what happens. So Lavar Woods, probably the number one on my list. Will it happen? Probably not. But absolutely, we need to go and see if he'd be willing to come over here to Lincoln. Fifth guy I want to talk about is Sean Snyder, longtime special teams coach with Kansas State, son of legendary coach Bill Snyder. Now, as of right now, he's the kickers and punters coach at Oklahoma State, also had a tenure with Illinois recently, USC. So we're talking about a guy who, again, very, very good long-time special teams coach, son of a legendary coach, obviously has great genetics in that department, really good coach in regards to kickers and punters, right? Developed them at a high level for a multitude of years. He was the special teams coordinator of the year in 2015 and also in 2017. So a guy who's pretty much the cream of the crop. I'm sure he would be very interested in coming into Nebraska. I'm sure he would. If Nebraska gave him the offer, I believe he would take it. I really like Sean Snyder. I think he's a veteran coach, been around the block a couple times. He knows what it takes to have an elite special teams. We're very familiar with him. We're very familiar with his father. Would not be too shocked if they made this happen here with Sean Snyder, and a guy that I'd absolutely watch out for here with the Huskers. One last guy who I wouldn't be too shocked in Nebraska, sees what's going on here with. This is Sam Cook, legendary Nebraska punter. Now, he retired a couple years with the Ravens, had a very long career, and he's actually an assistant special teams coach over there with Baltimore. Now, I would not be too shocked if Nebraska at least tries to get him on this coaching staff. Maybe not as a special teams coordinator, but maybe the punters coach or something along those lines. You have an unlimited size coaching staff nowadays. Would not be too shocked if they try to get him involved. It should be noted that his son is on the team as a punter. So this is a guy who I wouldn't be too surprised if Nebraska tried to get involved here. Probably not as our special teams coordinator, but to be hired. So I wanted to mention him. All right, guys, that's my video talking about 5 candidates that Nebraska is likely to hire at that special teams coordinator spot. Listen, Let's just go ahead and get the best candidate money can buy. No more friendships, no more, buddy. Let's go ahead and steal somebody from a very good school who's doing things at an elite level, and let's rock from there. Okay, we have a lot of money. Go ahead and use it and get a special teams coach who has a bright future and is doing things at an elite level. That's what we want more than anything. Let's see what happens here. So, all right, those are my 5 candidates. Let me know down below your thoughts. Is there a candidate that you want that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comment section. Absolutely want to read what you have to say. Hey, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm so appreciative of all of you and your support. Thank you guys so much. All right, guys, go Big Red, go Matt Rhule, and see you in the next one.